She didn't even flinch when I walked in, just laid there, legs draped over the armrest like she owned the whole damn universe, laughing into her screen like I wasn't real, like the man who built the roof over her head was just background noise to her emotional growth. "Who's texting you so late?" I asked, pretending to sound neutral. My voice was steady, but I already knew I hated whatever answer was coming. She didn't look up, just flicked her thumb and smirked. "Relax, it's just Marcus. He's my mentor." That name, Marcus. I'd heard it 3 times in passing the last month, always thrown in like seasoning. A sprinkle here. Marcus says I need to set boundaries. A sprinkle there. Marcus thinks I've been playing small. And now he's in our house, through her phone at 11:04 p.m., making her giggle while I'm holding quarterly forecasts that keep her Pilates classes running. I frowned. Since when do mentors send laughing emojis at 11 p.m.? She groaned, finally looking up with that exasperated, "You're embarrassing yourself" face. "God, Aaron, you're overreacting. Stop asking questions." She always says that, like curiosity is an act of aggression. The irony is, I used to be the one who overshared, back when I still thought marriages were built on mutual transparency instead of weaponized vagueness. I started to walk away. Her voice followed me, sing-songy and smug. "He's been helping me grow, emotionally." I paused at the doorframe, gave her a nod, even managed a tight smile. "Okay, I won't ask again." That was the moment, the exact second something calcified inside me. I didn't yell, I didn't demand to see the messages, I didn't remind her that we'd built a life together out of college ramen and joint tax returns. No, I just let her win that round, because I'd already decided I was going to win the war. And hey, if you're reading this and you've ever had that gut-deep feeling that something's off, but she called you paranoid or dramatic or emotionally immature, do yourself a favor and follow this story. More than 90% of people just scroll through without subscribing, but this is the one where the quiet guy doesn't just uncover the truth. He engineers the fallout. That night, I sat on the porch with a bourbon I didn't even want. Not to mope, just to remember the moment. The exact breath when my silence stopped meaning defeated and started meaning calculating. Melissa didn't bring him up again for the rest of the weekend. She floated around the house like a motivational Instagram reel, journaling, deep breathing, telling me I should book a float tank to release my masculine tension. I said I'd think about it while I quietly reviewed the employment roster of her so-called mentor. Marcus worked at a startup we'd onboarded as a consulting client last quarter. They were trying to scale their infrastructure and had no in-house IT. My company covered their cloud backups, mobile device security, even their VoIP platforms, and most importantly, the reimbursement plan for all their executives' phones. A reimbursement plan I personally signed off on. So Monday morning, 9:17 a.m., I sent an internal request. "Auditing reimbursed assets. Please forward metadata access credentials associated with Marcus S.S.'s device. Tag, internal audit." That's all it took. Melissa had no idea she just called me paranoid to the man who could literally download her affair. For 3 days, nothing came back. I went to meetings. I responded to emails. I kissed her forehead when she left for Pilates and smoothies. I watched her flinch slightly each time I didn't ask how her emotional mentor was doing. Then Thursday afternoon, I got a flagged message from one of our junior analysts. It came with the subject, "Potential data leakage." I clicked it immediately. The file had screenshots auto-synced from Marcus's phone. One in particular was from Instagram, his close friend's story. A green ring, I almost missed it, except the analyst highlighted it in red. Melissa and Marcus, in robes. Hotel robes, sitting far too close, champagne flutes in hand, some abstract painting behind them that looked like it belonged in a retreat center. And the caption? "Energy work complete." I stared at the image for 10 full minutes, not out of shock, out of morbid curiosity, like watching a spider slowly finish spinning a web you plan to burn down. There it was, my wife's growth, her mentor, and a robe I recognized, not because I'd been there, but because I'd booked that same chain 2 months ago for a corporate summit. The design was distinct, red trim, bamboo embroidery. I knew the towels even more intimately, because mine didn't come with another man's shadow in the mirror. I didn't print it yet, I didn't scream, I didn't even close the file. I just picked up my phone, texted Melissa, "What was the name of that place you went for your wellness weekend?" Thinking of booking something similar for myself. She replied with a heart emoji and the name of a completely different retreat, one with no hotel, no rooms, just nature trails and somatic breathing. She was so casual, so brazenly confident in her lie, it was almost elegant. She really thought she'd won, that my silence was compliance. I sat back and smiled, because when someone underestimates you, it's not an insult, it's a weapon. By Friday, I'd memorized the timestamp on that photo, 2:17 p.m., a Wednesday. Supposedly she was at a breathwork circle. Her calendar even had a cutesy little pink lotus icon next to the fake event. I cross-checked it with the hotel's Wi-Fi log. Marcus's device had connected to the guest network at exactly 2:03 p.m. Hers, under the name M's iPhone, popped on 3 minutes later. Sloppy, but familiar. Melissa was always just careful enough to seem clever. Never careful enough to be untraceable. I didn't rush. That's how you lose. Emotional outbursts give people time to erase, revise, redirect. No, I needed her to feel safe, confident, still in the lie, still thinking she was smarter than me. So I didn't say a word, not when she kissed me a little too hard that night, not when she brought home a weird tea blend that opens your third eye, not even when she said Marcus had invited her to a leadership intensive in Costa Rica and asked if I could help cover her flight. I actually encouraged it. You should go, I said, looking up from my laptop. Might be good for you. She blinked. Really? You're okay with it? Why wouldn't I be? I sipped my coffee. He's your mentor. Her face lit up. Genuine. Like she'd just won a scratch-off ticket. You've been so cool lately, she said, setting down her mug. Like, grounded. Must be all that somatic breathing, I smiled. She didn't catch the barb. Or maybe she did, and chose to ignore it. Either way, she started texting faster. I saw the reflection in the microwave door, green bubbles, rapid fire, her tongue poking out like she was writing a love note in class. 2 hours later, I received a silent ping from my team. They'd extracted the rest of the synced content, screenshots, metadata, a few audio files. No actual text. Marcus had been smart enough to keep things off message, but the files told their own story. Audio note 3 weeks old, Melissa's voice low and breathy. Last night was unexpected, in a good way. Another 5 days later, I keep thinking about that thing you said, about how some people aren't partners, they're just providers. Ah, so that's what I was now, the provider. I clicked play again just to hear the venom behind the whisper. She'd recorded it from the bathroom. Acoustics suggested a tiled echo. My best guess? The same hotel as the ROBE photo, different angle, same betrayal. I forwarded the files to a private drive, created a folder, labeled it simply fuel, and still I said nothing. That weekend, Melissa was radiant, flowing dresses, no bra, humming in the kitchen. At one point, she lit incense and told me she could feel her alignment returning. I haven't felt this scene in years, she said while slicing avocado. I looked up from the news. That's great, honey. Marcus says I've started to unblock my shame center. I nodded. Can't have blocked shame, that'd be tragic. She gave a little laugh, the kind that says, you're a good sport, not you're in on the joke. And I was, just not the way she thought. Sunday night, I went for a drive, not to clear my head, but to test something. I parked outside the boutique hotel, same one from the photo. I waited. At 6:12 p.m., a familiar silver SUV pulled up. Melissa got out, carrying a canvas tote bag, the kind that screams retreat, but always ends up holding lingerie and a backup charger. She didn't see me, didn't even glance around, just walked inside, smiling at her phone. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. She'd said she was getting dinner with her sister. Her sister had posted a photo from another city that same afternoon, a wedding, with a time-stamped location tag. Melissa hadn't even bothered to coordinate the lie. I drove home, printed the most damning stills, not just the ROBE pic, but the hotel receipt. A zoomed-in shot of her hand on Marcus's chest, a snippet from her voice note transcript, all arranged in a manila folder like an end-of-semester project. And then, because cruelty sometimes wraps itself in poetry, I slipped in one last thing, a printout of the phone reimbursement policy signed by Marcus when he joined the startup. Clause 3.1, company devices and cloud storage are considered property of the contracting firm, subject to audit at any time. My firm, my audit, my property, let them call it snooping, let her cry invasion of privacy. I wasn't looking through her phone, I was reviewing an asset I paid for. Monday morning, she asked if I could Venmo her for a spa deposit. I smiled. Of course. She kissed me on the cheek. You're being so supportive lately, trying to grow emotionally. The next day, I requested a meeting with Marcus. Want to chat business growth, I said. You picked the spot. He replied in 5 minutes. Anytime, man. Would love to connect. Of course he would. What's better than mentoring your lover's husband? Maybe mentoring him straight into his own trap. Dinner was roast chicken, hers, not mine. Melissa always made it when she was feeling particularly smug, like she thought domesticity erased guilt, like a crispy skin could silence my instincts. He's thinking of offering me a part-time coaching role, she said, placing a thigh on my plate like she was bestowing a trophy. Who is? I asked, already knowing. She smiled with her whole face. Marcus. He says I have intuitive insight and that I could help guide others through transitions. That's so? I cut into the meat. Sounds like he really believes in you. She nodded, pleased with herself, totally missing the undertow in my voice. Finally, someone does. Ouch. Noted. I reached for the wine, poured her a glass first, then myself. Maybe we should all grab dinner sometime. You know, clear the air, since you two work so closely. She froze for just a blink, then recovered. He's private. I tilted my head, smiled. So am I. She laughed it off, busying herself with her fork, her phone lighting up with a new message, probably him. Just a thought, I said, sipping. Would be good to put a face to the life coach. She didn't answer, just picked at her salad like it had betrayed her. That was fine. I didn't need her permission. I just needed the door to stay unlocked long enough for me to walk through it with gasoline on my boots. Later that night, while she showered, Bluetooth speaker blasting spa music to cover her lies, I sent the message. Marcus, let's talk about growth. Business growth. He replied 3 minutes later. Anytime, man. You name the place. I picked a neutral cafe. Mid-tier, not flashy, not too casual. Public enough for courtesy, private enough for clarity. She came out of the bathroom in a towel, glowing like she'd just emerged from a temple. I was still at my desk, supposedly working. She leaned in, damp hair on my shoulder. What you working on? Business growth, I said. You inspired me. She kissed my cheek. I love this version of you. What version was that? The one too polite to call her out? The one who smiles while he inventories her lies? The version that calculates her downfall by spreadsheet? Sure, babe. Love away. The next day, she left for her spiritual coaching circle. Translation: hotel, incense, yoga pants, Marcus. I watched her drive away, watched the taillights disappear down our street like they were blinking in Morse code. One long lie, one short exit. I didn't follow her. I had bigger things to prep. First, I reviewed Marcus's public profile. LinkedIn, Instagram, his consultancy site that somehow had 6 testimonials but no business license. All curated, all fake polished like a motivational speaker who just discovered ChatGPT. He called himself a transformational strategist. I called him a parasite with decent lighting. Then I compiled a list. Cloud sync backups, checked metadata from hotel receipts, timestamped, matching her calendar entries with IP logins from the boutique hotel's guest Wi-Fi matched, photos from Marcus's close friend story, downloaded, stored, voice memos. 3 were transcribed, 1 was my personal favorite. I think I was never meant for monogamy. Cute. And finally I added a cherry, a snapshot of the coaching role offer Marcus had drafted in Google Docs. He hadn't sent it yet, but it autosaved to the company's shared cloud. You'd be amazed how many idiots don't know what shared actually means in tech infrastructure. The offer was vague, filled with buzzwords, potential to scale emotional equity, fluidity in guidance partnerships, collaborative energy exchange. Translation: let's keep screwing, but call it revenue. I screen captured every line, annotated the metadata trail, compiled the folder, mentorship. I wasn't going to out him in public. That's amateur hour. I was going to make him look in my eyes and realize he never had the upper hand, not even once. Melissa came home glowing again. Her third chakra must have really been poppin'. She kissed me, her lips tasting like the essential oils she thought covered other men's mouths. Good day, I asked. Beautiful, she said. Marcus says I'm almost through my emotional winter. I nodded. Hope spring comes quick. She giggled, wandered off humming. I opened the message thread with Marcus. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. at Celine Cafe, I'll get the corner table. He sent a thumbs up emoji. Confident, unbothered, poor bastard. He thinks I'm coming to discuss synergy. He doesn't realize I'm bringing a matchbook and a folder labeled mentorship. He doesn't realize he'll be the first to sweat, not the last. At 5:47 a.m., the house was quiet enough to hear the tick of the thermostat. Melissa was still asleep, on her side facing the window, her hand curled under the pillow like a child's, the same hand that had been resting on Marcus's chest in that close friend's photo. I looked at it for a long second, then walked out without a sound. Downstairs, coffee brewing, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and the manila folder labeled mentorship. It was full now, bulging. I started with the phone logs. Marcus's device, reimbursed under our executive package, had been used to call a number saved as many 26 times over the last month. Mostly after 10 p.m., the calls averaged 20 minutes. 2 were over an hour. Melissa had always said she hated talking on the phone. Said it drained her, said only boomers still called. Apparently, Marcus's voice was the exception. Message backups were less direct. They used encrypted apps, no visible content, but the frequency was enough. WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal, daily usage spikes between 10 a.m. and noon, right when she claimed she was in silent meditation. Amateur hour. Then the calendar sync. That was where it clicked. Melissa's wellness retreat weekend aligned exactly, down to the hour, with a hotel reservation Marcus had made under his personal rewards account. I knew it was his because the email confirmation had backed up to our cloud automatically. He'd even used his favorite quote in the special notes field, "Let it burn to rebuild." Poetic and helpful. The boutique hotel was in the next city over. They'd booked the Zen suite. It had a private soaking tub and sound healing amenities. Nothing screams platonic coaching like robes, champagne, and frequency bowls. I printed everything. The receipts, the guest Wi-Fi logs showing both their devices connected within 3 minutes of each other, the time-stamped photo of her in the robe, one leg draped over his, captioned "Energy work complete." I put it all in order, each page slipping neatly behind the last. It wasn't a folder anymore. It was a dossier, a case file. Exhibit A through F. Enough to make denial look not just foolish, but insane. Then I called my company's legal team. "Quick question about internal device audits," I said casual. "What's our position on shared cloud access?" "Company property is fair game," they replied. "Even personal usage. If it's backed up to our infrastructure, we technically own it." "Good," I said, "just clarifying policy, totally unrelated." They didn't press. Why would they? I wasn't the kind of man who played games. Until now. I hung up, took a breath. This wasn't about lawsuits. I had no intention of going to court. That would be too loud, too public, and frankly, too generous. Marcus didn't deserve legal drama. He deserved irrelevance. Melissa didn't deserve confrontation. She deserved certainty, the kind that doesn't come with arguments or ultimatums, but with facts so complete they replace the need for conversation altogether. I wasn't building a bomb. I was setting a table. Every fork in place, every glass spotless. One seat for me, one for him, and the last one for the version of Melissa who thought she'd gotten away with it. At 9 o'clock a.m. sharp, I placed the folder into a leather briefcase and laid out my clothes for the cafe meeting. Neutral colors, no tie, business casual, but sharp enough to say, I came prepared. Melissa was in the shower when I walked past the bedroom. She was humming again, always humming after a night of texting. I paused by the doorway, then opened my phone and checked the cloud backup one last time. Marcus had posted another close friend story overnight. It was a photo of a notebook, her handwriting, the words, "I never felt truly seen until now." He'd added the caption, "Witnessing her unfold is the honor of my life." I took a screenshot, didn't print it, just saved it silently and moved on. Some people might cry, some might scream, some might throw things. I was just taking notes. At 9:42, I texted Marcus. "Still good for 10? He replied with a fist bump emoji. "See you soon, boss." Boss. For someone who liked to talk about energy and alignment, Marcus had no idea he'd just volunteered to sit across from the one man in his life who actually controlled something real. His calendar was synced, his phone was tracked, his mentor facade was about to be peeled back like laminate. Not because I was a hero, I wasn't. I was just tired of building systems that made other people rich, while they used them to fuck my wife. Today, the system would give back. Celine Cafe sits on a sleepy corner tucked between a nail salon and a bookstore that smells like mildew and regret. It was chosen intentionally. No noise, no crowds, just enough sunlight to make liars squint. I was already seated when Marcus walked in, tight black jeans, distressed boots, and that smug, magnetic energy of a man who thinks personal growth is a personality. He scanned the room, spotted me, and approached like we were old college buddies reconnecting over espresso shots and shared delusions. Didn't expect the CEO himself to reach out, he said, grin already loaded. I looked up from my black coffee. Well, you're mentoring my wife, felt appropriate. That made him pause just for a second. Then the grin doubled down. Strictly professional, I assure you. I motioned to the seat across from me. Sit. Let's talk about that. He took the chair like he owned it. Back leaned, ankle resting over knee, as if he was about to coach me on my chakras. I reached into my leather briefcase, no rush, no drama, just paper and inevitability. He watched curiously, cocky but curious, as I slid the sealed envelope across the table. What's this? He asked, already peeling it open. Documentation, I said. For alignment. The smirk died around the edges first. He pulled out the first photo, the one of him and Melissa in robes, her foot brushing his thigh, his glass of champagne raised mid-toast. The caption, energy work complete, stared back at him like a court summons. Next page, the hotel booking receipt. Marcus's name, Zen Suite. Guest, MS+1. Time-stamped 2:17 p.m. Same time Melissa's calendar claimed she was in a breathwork session 40 miles away. The third page hit harder. The Wi-Fi log metadata. 2 devices. Connected minutes apart. One registered under Marcus's device ID. The other, Melissa's. Synced. Saved. Stored. Then came the best part. His own Instagram story archive. Downloaded directly from the company's cloud cache. His voice dropped. I didn't post that to public. How did you? I took a sip of coffee, slow and clean. You use a company-issued phone. That company is mine. Silence. Complete and perfect. The kind of silence where you hear someone's worldview begin to collapse under the weight of their own stupidity. You accessed my phone? Not your phone, my phone, or rather, a device reimbursed and cloud synced by my infrastructure. You uploaded that story, you backed it up on our cloud. It became subject to internal audit. He looked down at the pages like they were hand grenades, one pin away from blowing up his entire carefully curated facade. I didn't think. Clearly, he swallowed. Look, man, I never meant to disrespect. I put a finger up. Just one. He stopped like a dog trained on the first snap. I'm not here for apologies, I said, and I'm not here for a performance. I'm here so that you understand exactly how thoroughly I know. He shifted. The calm, overconfident Marcus, the yogi meets bro startup guru was gone. What remained was a guy in a cafe being dismantled piece by piece, politely. I leaned in slightly, just enough for intimacy. You thought you were clever. You thought being vague, staying off standard messaging apps, hiding behind professional coaching, and gaslighting your way through stolen weekends made you invisible. It didn't. It just made you lazy. His hands trembled slightly as he folded the pages back into the envelope. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone, he said, voice thinner now. It just happened. We connected. I chuckled. That's cute. I mean it. I didn't go looking for this. You found it in a robe? He winced. Marcus, I said, folding my hands, you're not special. You're not even smart. You're just another guy who thinks wives are unclaimed land and that good men are obstacles to be circumvented instead of respected. He tried to regain footing. You're obviously hurt, and I get it, but maybe you should look at why she needed. I leaned back, amused. Don't. Don't what? Don't pivot. You're not in a TED Talk. This isn't a keynote. There's no healing in this circle. He opened his mouth. I raised a brow. He closed it again. Now I continued, sliding another envelope from my case. This one's a bit more formal. It's a termination notice. Effective immediately. Your access to company systems has been revoked, your cloud account is locked, and the reimbursement pipeline is closed. He stared at it like he couldn't comprehend the weight. You're firing me? No, I'm cleaning house. But Melissa, I know. I have everything. His face went pale. You told her I wasn't enough, I said, rising from my seat, that she was undervalued, that you saw her. I looked down at him, dead center in the eyes. You saw a vacancy. I saw a parasite. He started to say something, but I shook my head. You'll be hearing from my assistant regarding formal procedures. If you contact Melissa, I'll consider it harassment, and you don't want my legal team bored. I left the cafe without finishing my coffee, left him sitting there, envelope in hand, the smirk long since evaporated. The lion's den? No, he wasn't the lion, he was the bait, and he just found out who's been holding the leash. Please, man, Marcus said, voice cracking around the word man, like we were still two guys trying to patch something up after a bar fight. I didn't mean for... I held up a finger, same way you train a dog to sit. His mouth snapped shut. I'm not interested in apologies. He blinked, looked down at the envelope like it might rewrite itself into something less devastating. The smirk he wore so well was long gone. His face was a shade I'd usually associate with food poisoning or the DMV. I reached back into my case, pulled out the final document. This one didn't have pictures, it had numbers. Bullet points. Policies. This, I said, laying it down slowly in front of him, is a summary of your reimbursements. Every phone call, every gigabyte of data, every time you uploaded private content onto the company's cloud under the terms you signed, including the clause you never read about personal use. Your violation is documented, your access revoked, you are terminated as of this moment. He didn't reach for it, he just stared at the table, then at me, then back at the envelope. His fingers twitched. This is overreacting, he mumbled. I tilted my head. You think I'm overreacting? You could have just talked to me. Or to her. We could have worked it out. I care about her, Aaron. That name coming from his mouth felt like someone spitting into a chalice. You care about her, I repeated, flat. He nodded. She's not just some affair. This wasn't planned. It evolved organically. Organically, I repeated, like mold. His nostrils flared, and for a second I saw it. He was going to try to swing the narrative back. He was used to coaching his way out of things, to rewording reality until it sounded noble. She needed someone to listen, to see her. I nodded slowly, and I'm sure she saw plenty of you too. His hands spread, pleading. Don't throw everything away because of one mistake. I smiled thinly. This isn't one mistake. This is a series of deliberate choices wrapped in spiritual jargon and a mentor label. You branded your affair like a yoga class. He swallowed hard. Melissa doesn't know you found out? I stood. She will, I said. Tonight. He jolted back in his seat like I'd slapped him. Don't do this. You mean, don't interrupt your little fantasy camp? Sorry, Marcus. Your drum circle just lost its rhythm. Please, he started again. Marcus, I said, leaning down just enough to see the sweat forming on his upper lip. The difference between us is I don't lie to people and call it clarity. I don't sleep with another man's wife and call it healing. And I don't weaponize emotional vocabulary to cover my own pathetic impulses. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. I gave you the rope, I added. All you had to do was not hang yourself with it. His voice came out strangled. What are you going to do to her? That made me laugh. Not loud. Just enough. You think this is revenge? No, you're too small for that. This isn't about hurting either of you. Then why? It's about ending the illusion. Cleanly, surgically. You thought I was the blind husband, the etem, the emotional caveman who couldn't connect, but I saw everything. From day one. I just waited for you to walk into your own story. He looked at the termination notice again. His name in bold, the timestamp of the audit at the top, the little note at the bottom from HR, final payout processing initiated, access revoked. His face went slack, pale, lifeless. I picked up the briefcase, no need to slam it shut. The point had been made, loudly, silently. Celine Cafe has great pastries, I said casually, if you're still hungry. And with that, I walked out. Outside, the sun was brighter than I expected. I stood for a moment on the sidewalk, adjusting to it. There was no victory dance, no cinematic music, just the sound of a weak man breaking apart in a chair behind me and the soft snap of closure as the cafe door shut. I didn't need to destroy Marcus. I just needed to hand him the mirror. And now it was Melissa's turn to look. The house smelled like clove candles and lavender gilt. I walked in and found her in the living room, setting the mood, dim lights, soft music, the kind of ambiance she usually reserved for nights when she wanted to talk about where we're heading, while pretending her voice wasn't rehearsed. She turned when she heard the door click. "I was thinking we could talk," she said softly. No makeup, hair pinned up like she wanted to appear raw and open, like a woman who could still be saved. I nodded. "Let's." She gave a tight smile and moved to sit on the couch, legs crossed, palms on her knees like she was about to start leading a meditation. I didn't sit. I placed the briefcase on the kitchen counter, unlatched it, and walked over to the dining table with just one page. One. The photo. Marcus. Her. Robes. Champagne. Caption: energy work complete. I laid it flat on the table, didn't say a word. She blinked, stepped forward like she wasn't seeing it right. Her mouth twitched, then froze. "That's not what it looks like," she whispered. "No?" I said, tilting my head like a disappointed parent. "Tell me what it looks like." "It's not. It was a retreat. We were doing emotional detox work." I said nothing. Just walked back to the briefcase, opened it, pulled out the hotel booking receipt, slid it next to the photo like a matching puzzle piece. "Interesting place for detox," I said. "Private suite, champagne on the minibar, red-trimmed robes, sound bath playlist in the background." She opened her mouth, but I was already reaching for the next page. Phone bill, call logs, message pings, app usage. I didn't need the content. The frequency was enough. I laid it out. Then came the cloud log, device names, timestamps, overlapping GPS data from the guest Wi-Fi, each one more clinical than the last. Melissa's expression collapsed in stages. "Why are you doing this?" she said, voice smaller now. "I'm not doing anything," I said evenly. "I'm just organizing the mess you already made." Her hands clutched the back of a dining chair, knuckles white. "I didn't mean for this to happen. It just, Marcus helped me see things." "Like my blind spots?" I asked. "Or yours?" She swallowed. "We didn't plan it. It evolved. Like a virus." She flinched. I watched her eyes flicker to the documents on the table, to me, to the front door, as if there might be an escape hatch. "Aaron," her voice cracked now, "are you leaving me?" I stared at her for a long moment, not because I didn't know the answer. I just wanted her to feel the weight of it coming. "You don't need me to," I said quietly. "You already left." Her mouth opened, closed again. The tears came fast, but it wasn't the sobbing kind. It was the panic cry. The kind you get when the safety net gets cut and you suddenly realize gravity isn't just an idea, it's a sentence. "This can't be it," she whispered. "We've built a life. This house. Us. You, don't you want to fight for that?" "You told me to stop asking questions," I said. "So I did. I answered them instead." "I didn't want it to mean something," she said. I felt like I was disappearing. Like you didn't even see me anymore." I nodded. "And he made you feel seen." "Yes. And then he made you feel horizontal." She gasped. "That's not fair." "No," I agreed. "It's accurate." She turned away like my face was suddenly too bright. "I made a mistake. You made a pattern." We stood in silence, the candles flickering like they were trying to decide whose side they were on. Can't we at least talk to someone, a counselor? We've come too far for it to end like this. I looked at her, really looked. The woman I met at 25 was still in there somewhere, under the layers of curated spiritualism and Marcus's voice notes. But I couldn't excavate her. That wasn't my job anymore. "Don't you even want to try?" she said, stepping forward, hand half raised like she was going to touch my chest. I stepped back. "You can't touch what you already gave away." She stood there, frozen, her hand hanging midair like a severed connection. I picked up the documents from the table one by one. No rush, no drama, just clean removal. "You'll get an email from legal," I said. "We'll handle the separation quietly." Her voice trembled. "You're really doing this?" "No," I said, "you did this. I'm just following your lead." She sank into the chair, not crying now, just stunned. The candles burned lower, scent thick and sweet and suffocating. I walked to the door, paused, turned back once. "I'll be staying elsewhere tonight." "Where?" she asked, already afraid of the answer. "Somewhere with better air." Then I walked out, left the door unlocked behind me. Because locks don't keep betrayal out. They just delay the moment you're forced to see it. She followed me upstairs like a ghost, barefoot, breathless, mascara streaking like war paint. I could hear the soft thud of her steps behind me, the desperate inhale before each sentence like she was trying to hold herself together through sheer oxygen. "Don't you even want to fix this?" she cried. I didn't answer right away, just unzipped the overnight bag I hadn't used since my last client retreat. There was something fitting about that. Going away again. Only this time, the retreat wasn't spiritual, it was surgical. When I finally spoke, my voice was even. Too even. "You told me to stop asking questions," I said, folding a dress shirt. "So I did." I tossed a pair of jeans in, undershirts, socks, every motion deliberate, mechanical. Melissa stood at the doorway, clutching the frame like she needed to hold on to something that hadn't already slipped. I started answering them instead. Her breath caught. "That's not fair." I looked up at her. "Is this the part where you explain your version of the truth?" She stepped forward, almost tripping over her words. "We can get through this. You and me, we faced worse." "No," I said, we faced hard times, not betrayal, that's new." She backed away like I'd slapped her, hand rising to her mouth. "I'll call my sister. She'll talk to you." "She should know," I said, buttoning the bag shut. "I'll call my parents. They should know too." Her voice raised an octave. "You're trying to humiliate me." "No," I said, picking up my jacket. "You handled that just fine on your own." She moved again, blocking the door, trembling. "Aaron, please." I didn't push past her. I walked to my desk instead, opened the drawer, took out the final nail, Marcus's phone. Company issued, deactivated, wiped of its business accounts but still intact, at least the personal bits. Some data had synced, of course, but this was the raw local device. The one that still had unuploaded photos, the ones he didn't think anyone would ever see. I placed it gently on the nightstand right beside her essential oil diffuser. "I thought you might want this," I said. "It still has the photos. The ones you didn't know I had, the ones he didn't know he kept." She looked at it like it might explode. What are you going to do with them?" "Nothing," I said. "They're yours. So is the man you picked." She reached out, grabbed my arm. "Aaron, please, just don't leave like this. Talk to me. Yell at me. Do something." I stared at her hand on my sleeve. Then I stepped back. "No more touching what isn't yours." The line hit like a steel beam. Her hand fell. She stood there, breath caught in her throat, blinking at the man she used to be able to guilt, distract, control. But I wasn't him anymore. He died somewhere between the call logs and the third photo of her, with her head on Marcus's shoulder, laughing like she'd found peace in a lie. I slung the bag over my shoulder and walked down the hall. She followed, of course. Tears now. Muffled sobs, not from heartbreak. Those are cleaner. These were the sounds of a woman unraveling her own mythology, the one where she's always right, the one where the man in front of her will never leave. At the bottom of the stairs, she said it again. "We can still fix it." I turned once, hand on the door. "You can't fix something you don't think you broke." She stared at me like she was still waiting for the punchline. Like this was just another dramatic pause before the reconciliation. I didn't give her one. I stepped out, shut the door softly, no slam, no echo, just the sound of absence. She didn't follow this time, didn't scream or chase. I think in that moment, she finally understood. This wasn't an argument. This wasn't a phase. This wasn't a cold shoulder or a timeout. This was departure. Not a man running, a man done. The first email came at 2:14 a.m. Subject line, "Please just read this." It was the kind of message someone types with shaking hands and no backspace key, rambling, circular, swimming in half-truths and emotional pleas. Melissa's words blurred together, but the gist was clear. It wasn't real. Marcus meant nothing. I was just lost. You shut me out. This was a cry for help. I never stopped loving you. She signed it, "Always yours, M." Then came the second email, a longer one, timestamps, rationalizations, a breakdown of our marriage through her lens, my long work hours, my emotional distance, how Marcus filled a void. She called the affair a mistake born of spiritual exhaustion. She compared herself to a flame trying to stay lit in a windstorm. By the third message, she was angrier. Her tone sharpened. "You never saw me," she wrote. "He did. I didn't go looking for this. I found what you left behind." Ah, there it was, the reframe, the wounded heroine trying to turn the villain into the man she betrayed. I didn't respond. Not right away. Then came the voice notes. First soft, tear-choked, like an apology whispered into a pillow. Then louder, defensive. He manipulated me. He said you'd checked out. He twisted everything. I was vulnerable. One even ended in a scream. I was just trying to feel alive again. I listened to them all, once, then deleted them. I replied with a single sentence. You made your choices. Now live with them. She didn't write again for 5 days. When she did, it was a screenshot. Her contract offer from Marcus's company had been withdrawn. Apparently, once word of their mentorship got around, especially to his investors, the coaching role became untenable. She said she'd been publicly humiliated. She accused me of weaponizing perception. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Marcus, ever the optimist, tried to reach out too. A LinkedIn message at first. Hey man, I think we should talk. Clear the air. Be adults about this. Then an email. I want to apologize again. I misspoke. I never meant to harm your marriage. Please consider a call. My legal team sent the cease and desist the same day. One of my more cheerful associates even said, I've been waiting for this moment since that idiot started his first wellness podcast. It wasn't revenge, it was procedure. I moved into a short-term rental downtown. Nothing fancy. Concrete floors, big windows, the kind of place where the silence sounds like truth. I didn't decorate, didn't hang anything on the walls. Just a mattress, a coffee pot, and my laptop. Work resumed like nothing happened. In meetings, I was sharper, more focused. Even my assistant noticed. You seem lighter, she said, handing me a printout. Air's better, I replied. Fewer toxins. Something had shifted. I didn't miss her, not really. What I missed was the version of her I'd built in my mind. The Melissa who would never lie, never play dumb, never turn growth into a weapon. She never existed. What existed was a woman who craved applause, who let the idea of being seen justify anything, even betrayal. What existed was Marcus, a man who spoke in riddles and stole in affirmations. And what remained? Me, not heroic, not broken, just intact, solid, untouched by the fire because I'd finally stepped out of it. Let it burn. Let them both dance in the smoke and pretend it was sage. I didn't need to gloat. I'd already won by refusing to play. 3 months later, the skyline looked different, not because it had changed, the same glass towers, same pigeons playing chicken with traffic, but because I had. Something in my eyes had reset, calibrated. The new office sat 27 floors up, high enough to drown out the past. No photos on the walls yet, just light, space, and an expensive desk that still smelled like varnish and clean slates. I was reviewing a client proposal when my assistant knocked once and poked her head in. Marcus's replacement is ready for her onboarding. I closed the file and leaned back. Send her in. She stepped through the door like she owned the room. Not arrogant, just assured. A tailored blazer, eyes that tracked details without darting, no spiritual jargon dangling from her sentences. She introduced herself with a firm handshake and a resume that didn't use the word alignment once. I hired her before she even sat down. She asked one question during the meeting. What's your leadership style? Measured, I said. I like systems that don't lie. She smiled. So do I. Later that afternoon, a small envelope appeared on my desk, handwritten. No return address, but I didn't need one. Melissa's handwriting hadn't changed, neither had her tendency to write my name with exaggerated loops, like she was still trying to wrap herself around me on paper. Inside was a folded card. Cream-colored, the kind that comes with pressed flowers or apologies that never bloom. I stared at it for a moment, long enough to feel nothing. Then I read the first line. If I ever mattered, please meet me once. That was all I needed. I didn't flip the card over, didn't read the rest. Whatever came after that plea would be a rebranding, remorse as insight, regret dressed as poetry. I stood, walked to the shredder in the corner, and slid the card in without hesitation. It hummed to life. Soft. Final. As the last scrap disappeared into the teeth, I exhaled, not out of triumph, out of vacancy. The bridge was gone, not burned, just gone, unused long enough to rot. She'd probably cry when she realized the door was truly closed, not slammed, not locked, just closed, with no one left behind it. Marcus was already a ghost in the system, his name scrubbed from documents, access revoked, his ripple reduced to nothing more than an HR record. Melissa, she'd become a voice that no longer belonged to anyone. And me, I wasn't reborn, I wasn't transformed, I was simply intact. A man with fewer illusions, quieter mornings, and a new view. The city kept moving beneath me, and for the first time in a long while I had no interest in looking back.